What do you do when you feel like your prayers are going unanswered? The just, how do we live? By faith. What do you do when it seems like your dreams have turned to ashes? The just shall live by faith. When all you see is trouble on every side, you remember that Jesus is still on the throne, and you remember that the just shall live by faith. So the fact is that if we understand that the just will live by faith, the just will live by faith, then when everything seems out of control, how do we live? By faith. It's not because of anything that I've done. I can't control anything anyway, but I'm going to live by faith. And so basically what happens here in Habakkuk chapter 2, God pronounces judgment on the wicked Babylonians because they are greedy, they are arrogant, they are immoral, they are idolatrous, they kill without remorse. Sounds a little bit like the world in which we live in today. God promises that one day He's going to destroy them and deal with them, but that's still 70 years away. So what do you do in the 70 years while you're still waiting? What do you do when you think, God, what's going on? Well, you know what happens? The end is determined, but it still takes a long time. We know what the end to this whole deal is. We look at the unrighteousness in the world today. We look at the injustice in the world today. We look at the pain and the heartache and the poverty and the sorrow and the crime and the violence and the abuse and the pain. And we go, God, when is it going to end? We know that Jesus is coming back. We know that there is going to be a new heaven and a new earth. Until then, what do we do? What do you do while you watch the bad people still kill, behead their enemies? You know what happens? The just, how do we live in this time? We live by faith. What do you do when evildoers come to power? What do you do when corrupt governments come and we can't change it? The just will live by faith. That's what's going to get us through. What do you do when you feel like your prayers are going unanswered? The just, how do we live? By faith. What do you do when it seems like your dreams have turned to ashes? The just shall live by faith. When all you see is trouble on every side, you remember that Jesus is still on the throne, and you remember that the just shall live by faith. There is a fight for your faith. There is a fight for my faith. We cannot control all of the world and the circumstances around us, but we can control how we live in the middle of it. And how we're living in the middle of it is the just shall live by faith. So we have finally an unwavering commitment in the midst of this. And we see this in Habakkuk chapter 3. The whole tone of the book changes. It's wild to me that in this place, everything shifts. A prayer of Habakkuk, the prophet, according to Shigonoth. Oh Lord, I have heard the report of you and of your work, O Lord, do I fear. In the midst of the years, revive it. In the midst of the years, revive it. In the midst of the years, make it known. In wrath, remember mercy. God came from Teman, O the Holy One from Paran. And he goes on right through in the midst of all of this. The whole tone of this changes. In this book right now, in chapter 3, the tone of Habakkuk, he moves from confusion to clarity. He moves from fear to faith. His circumstances haven't changed. In fact, for the next 70 years, they're going to go from bad to worse. But what has changed? His perspective's changed. That's what happens when you wait upon God. Your whole perspective changed. The enemies are still coming. They are still going to be held captive. They're going to be in exile for 70 years. But everything is going to change because his perspective has changed. So you and I, we live in dark times. We know the days are going to get darker. So what do we do in the midst of it? We shift our perspective. We understand Jesus is still on the throne and the just are going to live by faith. It doesn't matter how evil, how painful, how dark it gets. We are going to live by faith. We don't need our circumstances to change because we trust our God in the midst of our circumstances. So how did the prophet move? How did he move from that place? From fear to faith? How did he move from confusion to clarity? How did he move to that place of going, okay, God, nothing's changed. Nothing. And you might be watching this and here we've come to the end of the series and go, well, I'm still, got some challenges in my marriage. I've still got some challenges with my kids. I've still got some challenges at work. I've got some challenges in my single life. What happens? When you shift your perspective and you shift your posture, everything changes, even if your circumstances don't. And we want to be a people of faith. We want to be Christ followers that don't need our circumstances to change so that our faith can be elevated. We want to show people that in the midst of the fire, we still trust God. In the midst of the fire, our God is still faithful. In the midst of the fire, our God is still good. That even though the challenges might be heating up around us, the strength of God is burning even more on the inside of us. And that's what happens to all of us. How do you find peace internally? That's the question on the table, when nothing has changed externally. How do you find peace internally when nothing changes externally? And we see that firstly in Habakkuk 3:1-2 through prayer. So what he does is he says, God, revive us in these days. God, would you do in the present what you've done in the past? God, would you do a revival miracle? I don't know about you, but I've been on my face before God, praying for signs and wonders and miracles and revivals. I'm going, God, you did it before. Would you do it again? With the same God that parted the Red Sea once, God, would you part it again? The same God that pulled down some Jericho walls, God, would you pull them down again? Would you push back the River Jordan again? Would you heal bodies again? Would you open blind eyes again? Would the mute be able to speak again? Could you heal people's emotions again? Could you say to the woman with the issue, you are healed? Could you say to the lame man, get up, take up your mat and start walking? God, you did it before. Would you do it again? God, would you revive us in our days again? Would you do it again, God? And so he's praying and he's saying, God, you did it. Revive us in our days. I'm praying for revival in our generation. Oh yeah, it's dark. There's a lot of injustice on the earth. There's a lot of pain on the earth. There's a lot of suffering on the earth. There's a lot of things that are just cray. But I'm praying, God, could you send a revival again? God, I've seen you do some miracles. God, I've been part of a church that has seen things around the world that we could have only dreamed of in our lifetime. God, I've seen movements birthed. I've seen people saved and delivered. And I want to see it again. I know the day is dark, but God, it's not too dark for you to move. I know that there's a lot of pain, but there's not so much that you can't move in the midst of it. So God, would you send revival again? And I'm praying, everyone watching this on the other side of the screen, that your faith would be stirred up and you'd believe your God again for revival fire to spread across the nation. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't listen to people that say God has finished working. I'm telling you, your God is still at work today, and we're going to ask him to revive our nation again.
Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. I hope you'll share your thoughts in the comments, and if you feel led, please share this video with a friend who needs to see it. Thanks so much for watching.